Hi. Today I would start speaking about one of the many controversies we face in this world. I will speak about controversy of unique and creative organization, such as a university or higher educational institution, as we call a general case, and the push they face in so many countries and so hardly in order to get better. The push is universal, but the cases that face that push are unique. And that creates a controversy that I will address today in this short speech. I will tell you three stories in order to make the problem, the issue, the challenge more testable so that you better understand what I'm going to talk about, the message I'm going to spread. And then we will try to generalize and see what gets out of it. So let's come to the stories. Imagine yourself in a prairie. Well, it's not so radical, but still the first story goes about the people who are ready to explore something, to venture, to dare, to be different. This is a new university set in a new place in a city where the university didn't exist. The new team came there, to present, to change the environment, their city, do something absolutely new. And they still do have the spirit, the startup spirit. They are ready to be visible, they are ready to be different, they are ready to be there and to act. That is their motto. And they do rely on themselves in order to be able to do that. They are very strong and very powerful academically. They're also very strong as a team of pioneers who ventured, who dared, who started, who initiated. So this culture is very evident and strongly present in the university. The people who work there do have a very strong expertise, which is acknowledged widely. They have chosen a very specific and good niche, and they do act there, expressing themselves and acting, producing fantastic results. The challenge for this university exists though. The challenges come, as always, from within and from outside. And the outside change is a general change. The change we face here in the economy, the political life, and the way their higher educational system functions. But internal changes are also there because the new people come. And this spirit, this culture is being stepwise diluted. So it still exists, but it's not that strong anymore. You cannot take it for granted. So from this case one, we move to the second one, which looks absolutely different. So you now have a very dense landscape, which is urban landscape. And that is very special about this case. The region is booming. The university is also young, like the first one we addressed. But in the booming region, it has so many resources, the human resources available, the money available. They could choose any direction to go. But that creates a challenge for them as well, because they do have to change this direction. They do have to set priorities. And with their large, rather isolated type of organization, as most of universities are, it's not so easy. You do have these autonomous units that are ready to go their own way, and you have to pull them somehow together, and you have to push them in a certain direction, and that's not so easy. The university is very impactful, so it produces good academic results, but you couldn't call them steady, you couldn't rely on them. And for the young university, it's important that it's not so steady, the racket they do have. The third case, to complete the scene, these people are very different from the first two sets because they do work as a university, as a team. They exist as an organization for quite a long while. This is a large, established university in the capital, which makes the whole situation different. They are known, they are visible, partly because they're in the capital, partly because they're old, partly because they're large. There are many factors impacting their visibility. But the question is about the quality of this visibility. How could you use it? as a potential, not as a threat, how could you get maximum out of it? How could you manage it further in order to be able to strengthen it, to use what you could use out of it? So here what we have is again diffused structure, so typical for a university, many units that might be conflicting with each other. There are complex rules because the university exists for such a while with so many generations inside. There are many rituals, unspoken conventions you have to deal with when you introduce something new, as a new measure, it's a new political tool. They do have strong performance as well. German universities are known for very high academic quality, but when you look inside and when you are within the university, you notice that this performance is not even. So if you'd like to push something upward, you would like to make it more predictable. You would like it to have it more manageable, if you could use this word, talking about academic creativity and invention. So, as mentioned already, this solid and compelling reputation the university already has is both an opportunity and a challenge for it, because it sets high external expectations that the university is supposed to meet and respond to. Now we come to the challenge itself. The government is pushing all the universities towards higher academic performance. Germany, as all the countries around the globe, would like to have their higher educational system more visible, more competitive, winning better people, more talents, and thus pushing the innovativeness in the national economy again on top. How could you achieve that? So one of the tools that is being used nowadays, been introduced several years ago, is the requirement or the demand, the stimulus for the universities to introduce performance measurement tools. And the universities react differently to that. As we have discussed, the universities are different, so their reaction is naturally different. Here I list some factors which I believe are influencing the situation and the reaction the universities produce. Definitely the size of the higher educational institution, how developed it is, how complex is an organization, what type of relations exist there, so the climate as we call it, when we talk in management terms. Also, what type of environment the university is working in. Is it easy for it to cope with external requirements or not? How could it react to what's going on? If it's on the wave, if it's popular, if it enjoys the current situation, then it's definitely easier to cope with additional requirements. When the situation is tough already, then an extra push might be this last drop, which would be taken really critically. And finally, the leadership, the type of relations, the hierarchy, the flat structure, etc. So the management culture is also of huge importance in the question how their organization reacts to the new change. So I would quote here the responses these three universities have produced, so these three stories phase. The first one introduced small-scale experiments in order to be able to meet the resistance which is so typical for strong cultures. What is the main motto here is the flexibility. The university is looking for targeted solutions to address specific needs, specific challenges. For example, how could you push the performance of younger people who recently joined the university? Or how could you stimulate the teaching methods for the students who are not so engaged in teaching, and so on and so forth. So you try to find specific solutions for specific questions, and you are very flexible in your solutions in what you're doing in order to respond to the culture, to the expectations of the people, and lead through that. The second university, you might remember, was large and was facing the dilemma of choice, where to go, what to do. So what they did They introduced the hierarchical type of solutions, initiatives with really sufficient resources addressed to those who are ready to go an extra step, an extra mile, to do something additionally in order to prove their academic excellence. And definitely this is a new incentive that helps to differentiate the structure within the university. Through these structural initiatives, the whole organization is being reshaped. And also the university management is trying to win the supporters, both in the organization itself and also outside, to show that with these new initiatives, with this new structure, it is doing fairly well and it is solving this internal challenge of finding their priorities through these initiatives, through mobilizing its internal force. So you see that here the approach is really hierarchical, but still it works very nicely. The university is already demonstrating the results it was expected to get. And it also brings this stimulus and desire to go further on, to continue using these strategies and finding the winners and reshaping the universities, bringing it to the new level of quality and performance. Finally, the third case, the large universities. I wonder whether you will find it typical or not for this kind of organization. I find it quite peculiar. So performance issues do not seem to be on the agenda in this university, at least in this particular one. But what they do instead, they develop alternative priorities, alternative agendas that they try to push also outside, also through various lobbyist initiatives to the government as their possible way to go, as the possible alternative for general strategy for the higher education, so that you go perhaps this way, and that might be a better way for the whole system, instead of doing it their way that is being suggested now by the government. They do it very wisely. They introduce various projects which are very visible, which gain a lot of attention. These are important projects which have a national impact on what's going on. They do set definitely new type of examples, and they illustrate this possible agenda very nicely. What I find also special about this approach is that the universities, so as structure, the university in this case, is working very autonomously. It sets its own agenda, it acts within its units also very autonomously, so it is all the thing in itself, which makes it special, to my belief. Now I come to takeaway message. So what could we learn from that? The first thing which I believe is important is that the story is universal. We always have to be aware of nuances. They do matter. They define how successful our big and fantastic initiatives might be. It all comes into details. When we speak about the level of specific organization, I believe it is important to individualize these uniform requirements that come from, say, government initiatives or regulators, etc. So you do have to allow adjustments, and through that you build this synergy of joint efforts, the effort of organization to reach its own goals and the effort of the government to reach its goals at the national level. And here we come to the possible lesson for a regulating body. They also do have to make the goals of all the efforts very explicit, so that all the agencies that are involved could understand the whole message, the whole trouble, the whole problem of having this initiative, this push coming on them. And I believe that here the balance between push and pull efforts is also crucial. Probably more positive stimulus, so the carrots, work much better, especially with such creative and inventive organizations with so much independence and academic freedom, which is the core value of university, as a higher educational institution. So here, going for carrots would work I believe, much better in comparison to sticks. Now, for both parties involved, I believe that it is always important to check if the desired indicators really represent the reality, if the incentives that has been pushed is really working. There might be unique organizations, and for example, for them, this pattern, this model that has been pushed through the new managerial initiative of the government might not work, because it's an exception, it's different, it works differently. So we do have to consider that. And to be able to notice these exceptions and to value them, to treasure them, to use their uniqueness also as a possible opportunity to adjust our initiatives, our managerial governmental tools, it might be useful, it might be reasonable to have so-called watchdog, an independent organization that would verify the initiatives and their reactions, their responses, their match, whether the responses do react to what was being asked for, whether the push is being understood clearly and verified, brought into reality as it was designed for, etc. So there are many things we could discuss here further, but I believe that we'll make a stop here, and I am grateful for your attention and would be even more grateful for your comments and answers and questions that might come nowadays, presumably primarily through electronic mail, which I highly appreciate and welcome. Thank you very much. Wishing you a great day. Thanks a lot.